Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Let me tell you a little bit about Tyler Durden.
We're not your bank accounts.
We're not your job. You're not how much money you have.
You're not the clothes you wear.
wear.
You have to realize that someday you will die. Until you know that, you are useless.
Fight Club is the most misquoted, misinterpreted, and misunderstood film of the last 30 years, possibly. Some people think it's about reclaiming masculinity, or rejecting capitalism, or just mental health and schizophrenia, but beneath the fights is something more. Fight Club is a philosophical parable, a cry of suffering from a world driven by desire, boredom, and illusion. And nobody captured that cycle of suffering better than one German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer. Now, I'm not claiming this is some never-before-seen take. There are plenty of ways to read Fight Club, but I do think it's Schopenhauer's bleak, tragic vision of the world. His fusion of Western transcendental idealism with Eastern renunciation, of Kant and Plato with Buddhism and Vedanta, captures what Fight Club is ultimately about. A man trying to destroy the will. Let's start where the film does. In a cramped IKEA apartment, our protagonist, Jack, or rather the unnamed narrator, works a dead-end office job and fills the void with coffee tables and catalogs. He's trapped in the illusion that you can buy yourself.
I'd flip through catalogs and wonder, what kind of dining set defines me as a person?
That meaning is just a series of consumer choices. But this desire isn't just a lifestyle choice. It's metaphysical. For Schopenhauer, human existence is defined by a fundamental blind force called the will, a kind of unconscious drive that compels all beings to survive, reproduce, and strive endlessly, with no ultimate goal in mind. It's suffering on a cosmic scale. Life is, in his words, a pendulum, swinging endlessly between pain and boredom. Pain when we crave, boredom when we get what we crave. The narrator is caught in this loop. He wants individuation, to feel unique, to express himself, but his expression comes in the form of IKEA furniture and Starbucks coffee cups. He's enslaved to the will without even knowing it. His insomnia is, in a way, a metaphysical symptom. His soul is rejecting the bleak world he's built around himself. And out of this suffering emerges Tyler Durden, a hallucination, yes, but also a portrayal of the Jungian shadow. Everything repressed, raw, and unfiltered about the self. Tyler isn't just an alternate personality. He's the narrator's will made flesh, a Dionysian eruption of desire and chaos. From their very first interaction on the plane, when Tyler mocks the illusion of airline safety cards, the film makes it clear.
Blank faces, calm as Hindu cows.
All the systems we rely on to give us meaning, from work to brands to religion, are really just a big fat zero at the end of the day. The members of Fight Club don't just reject these systems. They replace them. They abandon corporate America only to worship a new idol, Tyler himself. The irony, of course, is that they're still trapped. Schopenhauer was deeply influenced by Buddhism and Hinduism, specifically the idea that desire, tanha, is the root of suffering, dukkha, and that liberation, moksha or nirvana, comes when we extinguish the flames of craving. In Buddhist thought, nirvana isn't a place, it's a state, a kind of inner peace that comes from detachment. In Hindu Vedanta, the goal is realizing that the ego, the self we think we are, is an illusion, that Atman, the individual soul, is Brahman, the universal consciousness. Schopenhauer translated this into Western terms. He believed art, philosophy, and asceticism were ways to transcend the will, to briefly step outside the cycle of striving and glimpse the world as it is. Fight Club gestures towards this transcendence when Tyler says, "You are not your job, the money in your wallet, your car, or your khakis." He's calling out the illusion. What in Vedanta is called Maya, the dream world of appearances. The Fight Club itself becomes a kind of Zen monastery, a place of ritual, ego death, and brutal enlightenment. But to not mix up Schopenhauer's doctrine, he advocated for a quiet renunciation, not destruction. He saw monks, artists, and philosophers as the highest form of humanity, people who turned away from the will, not burned it down. While Schopenhauer advocated for renouncing desire for asceticism, Tyler, which is only a part of the narrator's psyche, knows that the only way to help him achieve this is through destruction, self-destruction, burning said desire to the ground. Or as Schopenhauer said, a man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Tyler takes a shortcut, fights the will with more will, and that's where everything goes wrong. Because liberation through destruction is still a craving, still a form of desire. Project Mayhem becomes a religion, a cult, the very thing it tried to destroy. Tyler brings freedom, yes, but also control, ideology, violence. But maybe Fight Club doesn't give us an answer. Maybe it's not meant to.
It's very, very thick with ideas. Almost.
It's a philosophy class or something.
I
This
think
movie
so,
you
too.
go
Yeah,
watch,
philosophy,
and then you find yourself
theology.
talking. You know,
Yeah. This is a zeitgeist film. It's a film that, if we catch the spirit of this book in this film, we'll have really kind of held a mirror up to the culture at a certain time.
Maybe it's just a mirror reflecting back the absurdity of a world where every attempt at liberation risks becoming another form of enslavement, where even the desire to escape desire is still desire. And maybe that's the tragedy, or the butt of the joke. But of course, there lies a big problem in what eventually happens to this project of Fight Club. Tyler brings liberation, yes, but also lunacy. In trying to kill the will, the narrator feeds it with violence, control, and cultism. Tyler frees him from IKEA, but chains him to ideology, eventually traps him just as much as the will, pushing to such an extreme version of philosophy that he ends up in the very same place where he began. And here we shift from Schopenhauer to Nietzsche. Because while Schopenhauer warned us of the suffering caused by desire, Nietzsche warned us of what happens after we reject it. Beware all those who seek to replace God, for in their hearts they are merely worshipping shadows of him.
Fathers were models for God. If our fathers bailed, what does that tell you about God?
Nietzsche understood that the death of God, in a cultural sense, wouldn't liberate humanity, at least not immediately. It would leave a void, and nature abhors a vacuum. That void would be filled not by reason or freedom or art, but by new idols, leaders, brands, celebrities, ideologies. Tyler Durden, he becomes their god. The rules of Fight Club become scripture, Project Mayhem becomes a ritual, and the narrator, well, he becomes a prophet, watching helplessly as his own vision mutates into a cult. Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, the Overman, was someone who creates value for himself, not someone who imposes values on others. Tyler does the opposite. He becomes another false idol, another system, another voice claiming to free you while controlling you. What Fight Club actually becomes is a seductive lie, an escape that leads back to imprisonment. The narrator thinks he's killing his ego, but he's just switching thrones, from IKEA to Tyler, from the marketplace to the underground. This is why Nietzsche hated idol worship, because it kept people spiritually lazy. You kill God and then turn around and worship a guru or a musclehead. And the film makes this loop painfully clear. The very people who seek liberation end up in uniforms. They shave their heads, repeat slogans like,
"Come on, guys, please stop it." Is Robert Paulson.
They become everything they claim to hate. They destroy Starbucks windows while parroting Tyler's sermons like catechisms. The narrator realizes this too late though, that Tyler isn't a cure, but just another virus disguised with good intentions like a Trojan horse. A hallucinated god formed by his own pain, boredom, and repressed masculinity. And just like the will in Schopenhauer's view, Tyler cannot be reasoned with. He must be confronted and raised. So he puts the gun in his mouth, the final act of renunciation, not just of our narrator, but of the delusion that liberation comes through this extreme philosophy. It's a moment of painful clarity, and a scream against the lie that one can overcome suffering through destruction. This is where Fight Club ends, and where philosophy begins. To live lucidly, to see through the delusion, you don't need a savior or a revolution. You need perception. The will doesn't go away when you try to fight it. It doesn't burn down with a credit bureau. It lingers like smog, embedded in the very frameworks we move through. And the first step isn't heroism, it's recognition. When you see the will, you start noticing it everywhere. Not as some abstract philosophical force, but as a lived reality. It's in the ads that dictate your aspirations. It's in the metrics that measure your productivity. It's in the wellness industry that sells anxiety as a branding opportunity. It's in the gig economy, the self-improvement grind, the fetishization of growth. The will isn't hiding. It's algorithmically optimized, packaged, streamed, personalized. And that's why Fight Club still hits a nerve. It captures something essential about the psychological texture of late-stage capitalism. Not just the economic pressures, but the spiritual intellectual deadening, the hollowing out of identity until we're just consumers with a preference profile. A sense of being sold a lifestyle that's indistinguishable from submission. The narrator isn't just buying furniture, he's buying a sense of self. And that self is indistinct, prepackaged, and endlessly replaceable. Tyler Durden emerges as a rejection of all that. He's anti-brand, anti-system, anti-passivity. But the thing is that he's still a product, a reactionary fantasy. His solution of chaos, violence, and primal masculinity becomes just another myth to cling on to. He mocks the system but recreates it in his own image, with hierarchy, slogans, uniforms, and followers. What begins as rebellion becomes cult. What starts as anti-corporate becomes paramilitary. When confronted with meaninglessness, people don't choose freedom. They choose order. Even if fascism feels safer than ambiguity, man would rather will nothingness than not will at all. And so they follow Tyler Durden. Not because he offers liberation, but because he offers certainty. He makes the pain legible. He gives it purpose. And that's exactly how systems reproduce themselves. Not by suppressing rebellion, but by absorbing it and redirecting it. And so the film plays a dangerous game. It critiques the system, yes, but it also weaponizes its own critique. Tyler becomes cool, quotable, marketable. His anti-consumerism gets printed on t-shirts and posted on Instagram reels. The story's core about alienation, impotence, and systemic despair gets lost in the noise of edgy aesthetics. It's no accident that Fight Club has become a kind of Rorschach test. Everyone sees what they want in it, and most of them miss the point. That's why the film's ending matters, because the narrator doesn't defeat Tyler through strength or destruction. He defeats him through refusal, through opting out of the fantasy. He doesn't seize power. He recognizes that power itself, even in the hands of a so-called revolutionary, is just another performance, another loop. He chooses, however tenuously, to break it. But even that moment is ambiguous. Because what does he return to? A collapsing financial system, a relationship formed in deception, the bare fact of existence stripped of myth. Fight Club doesn't offer closure. It offers a quiet collapse, a recognition that there's no clear escape from a system that has already shaped the contours of your mind. And that's probably why the film remains so relevant, even if it's often misread, because we're still trapped in the same cycles, still trying to rebel through consumption, still turning critique into content, still mistaking performance for transformation. Fight Club doesn't tell us how to fix that, but it shows us what it looks like when we try and fail to escape through the very tools that have imprisoned us.